So here's a quick video on how to flash Am32 using a PWLINK power writer. I have a Wraith32 ESC here. In a blown up view here, it is an FO51K66 MCU. So what we're going to have to do first is you open up Power Writer, you select New Project, you make sure you get the right firmware, you hit OK, and you need to make sure that the write protection is turned off, or the read protection is turned off, and then you need to go down here and make sure all of these have disabled their write protections. And you'll want to make sure that your SWC and SWD pins are connected to the SW clock and SWIO with the ground. And then once that's all set up and ready to go, you come over here, you hit apply, you update the chip information, and then we will turn power on. I've just got mine set to 8.2 volts. So now it says target online. So then we go and make sure all of this stuff is ready to go, and we come over to program memory, and then we select add firmware, and then we want to find the bootloader that matches. So for this one, it is the SM32 FO5 PA2, and then we'll hit OK, and so that updates to that buffer there. And then I don't know if this is necessary, but I like to do it, is I will come over and I will pick the firmware that I want attached. I believe the one that has mostly worked is the 32V2. This one is, you'll have to do some modifying to make sure it works. And now it's going to say there's a conflict. Please select the one you want to load. And I will say start address 800 1000, and then hit OK. And we'll make sure that that's buffering right there. So that firmware selects there, and this firmware is selected here, starting at that correct spot. We'll hit apply, and then we will hit auto, and that will write the chip data, and then we will read it just to make sure it wrote, and it did. So then we will read this, and it looks like all the write protections have been disabled. So then we'll close this out, disconnect it, close it out, and then we will go to the ESC tool. I like the experimental firmware. So from here we'll make sure that we connect to the right thing. So I'm just going to unplug this guy and then plug in. Oh, putting you down. So now we're plugged in, still turned on. I'm just going to power cycle this just to make sure. Then we go to direct connect, select COM, whatever COM that comes up, and then we will connect to the ESC to read settings. And it's going to say no firmware found, please flash the firmware. So we come over to flash, load firmware, firmwares, and then same thing, flash the firmware, and it should beep when it's done, and it did. So now we want to make sure that everything's working, so we connect to it and send air default settings. You want to click that, and you come back to settings, connect to it again, and then all of your settings should be here, and we just hit save, and then you're good to go. And one quick thing before we go, I have a flight controller here connected now. So what we can actually do is we can test this. So if we turn this on, we can actually select unselect direct connect, select the COM for the flight controller, connect up, and you will actually see a new tab called motor control. So you can actually connect your ESC and then go to motor control, and that does, assuming we have bidirectional turned off and auto signal type, is you can turn this on and it should arm. Alright, so it just armed. And if it works properly, it's hard to move here. If it works properly, you should be able to run the motor. I don't have the right firmware selected, so it's just going to make beeps at me.